Today on the What's Up Solar podcast is Brick Maier. He is a seasoned media producer, educator, and learning and development leader known for his innovative approach to digital storytelling, corporate training, and knowledge management. Over the past decade, he has worked at the intersection of media, technology, and education, leveraging storytelling and data-driven strategies to enhance learning experiences both academia and corporate settings. So stay tuned for my interview with Brick Maier of HeatSpring. Hey everybody, welcome to What's Up Solar podcast, where I introduce myself and industry friends to you. And the reason that is important is because you need to know. Knowledge is power, and especially knowledge about this resource that is almost free to us. If we just know how to harness it, our society can be so much better. Now, everyone knows me. I am been an instructor and troubleshooter in the solar industry. So when I come across people who like to teach, who like to instruct, it's the Holy Grail. So I have with us today Brick Maier of HeatSpring. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. It is sunny and 70 in Seattle, so we take those days when we get them.
Yeah, that's a thing, because every time I've been to Seattle, it's been like London, just gray and foggy.
It's like that for about 6 months of the year, and so these days are just so beautiful. But yeah, things are great.
So how long have you been at HeatSpring?
I'd say a little over a year and a half in this role, and prior to that, I was doing some work as a researcher, where I initially worked with Brian and Britt to analyze the data behind how students were learning on their platform.
Oh,
So that was kind of, I wrote several white papers on that as
oh,
like
this is
research on engagement and kind of what the anatomy of a healthy course versus ones that are students drop out. And so I did that first, and then I kind of transitioned into this role that I have now.
I have a question for you about this because I've been around on this planet for quite some time. And I remember when I came out of, whatever schooling in the adult form, you got a job. They sent you for training anywhere from 3 days to a couple of months, where you had intense training about the product, the processes. And I saw over the years where that just kind of dwindled down to now they want a fully formed human that already knows. And the reason I say this is because if you look at job postings, they ask for credentials and you're like, the person that you want to hire just left or you just fired.
Yeah, they don't. It's a really good point around the ramp into your role has experienced some compression, and it has only gotten shorter. And it seems like, to your point, they're asking more and more, where they're like, well, I guess in 10 days you should be able to do all of these things that we just
Yeah.
listed. And I think to patiently unpack and support someone over there, and it depends on what they're doing, but like depending on how technical it is, I mean, it's when I was working in the tech industry in some of these like really complicated tech stacks, there would be this like onboarding ramp plan that they gave to all new hires.
Yeah.
And it was like a 30, 60, 90 ramp and you're in your role. But then like in the hallways and kind of the whisper number was like, it's probably going to take you 2 years. And it's like that's like why don't we need to be more honest about that to help support employees so they don't feel like they have to just become this sponge, which I don't think it's realistic, and it doesn't set people up
Yeah.
for success.
Yeah. And this is why I really got into LMSs. No, let me backtrack. I made a podcast a long time ago, and I was making a course about how to be a podcaster. This is like 2014, 2015. I
You're ahead of
never.
the curve. You
I've been podcasting since 2007, 2008.
okay.
Um, but back then, the only platforms that I had as a non-corporate entity were like LearnDash
Hmm.
that you hosted on a web on WordPress that would crash on you.
Yeah,
Lose
yeah, that was a
everything.
lot of duct tape and bubble gum.
Yeah, but today learning management systems seem to be the thing in corporate and learning, and it's become an industry where it used to be academia, where it was say, hey, we need somebody to understand how people learn. And I don't think they were really good at it because high school sucked, college sucked. Um, how has this progressed and how have you seen it progress over the years?
Yeah, LMSs did start out like I remember Blackboard is a big continues to be a big one, and you hear Blackboard and then Moodle.
Moodle, yeah, I
And
use that
it
one.
did start out in higher ed, and that was interesting because I feel like they emerged first as an online component that was grafted onto an in-person lecture
Yeah,
for a set of professors who to kind of broadly describe them as not being super interested in facilitating online discussion forums. And it's kind of like upload your assignment, post 3 questions into the discussion board, and that's 10% of your overall grade. And then that's kind of how learning management systems got their start. And how they've evolved it out of higher ed and into kind of a corporate environment is more uh, learning starts there, and we expect you to go there, and there isn't going to be a classroom component.
yeah,
Instructor-led training always gets really high reviews and high ratings on surveys, and everyone really says it's the best way to learn. And then the business is faced with scaling and cost, and if we do instructor-led training, we're going to be limited by this many over this period, and it takes a lot of time, and we can't. There's this gravitational pull for scale and efficiency toward an online environment. And over the years, the platforms have stabilized. They don't crash as much. They
yeah.
bring more different kinds of interaction into them, and I think they're always, I don't know, there's an interesting
I got you
they
thinking,
try
didn't
and they try and like throw a lot of features at you, and then I kind of step back and I say, is this improving my experience as a learner? Because I think I remember when before HeatSpring, I worked at Amazon for about 7 years in knowledge management and training, and there were two camps there. There were the folks who were instructional designers,
you? Yeah,
maybe they had a title like learning experience designer, and they were fluent in a tool set that was authoring e-learning tools. And they would put a package into SCORM, it would go up in an LMS, and this became kind of this immersive experience. And they knew those tools, they knew the bells and whistles. And then there was this other camp that was like fast, not perfect. Give me a video. It's going to change in 2 weeks. I don't want to, we can't spend a lot of time. And so I actually ended up gravitating more toward that other one, which is speed and video first. And I think that's why I'm not leery of all of the features you can pack into an LMS, but I think I look for the data that demonstrates improved learning efficacy
yeah.
over the enthusiasm for an animation or uh, a drag and drop thing or kind of I don't know. And I don't want to dismiss because I know that those are grounded in learning theory, but my experience as a learner when I'm going through a course is I kind of want to go through it quickly, check my knowledge, and then review where I have gaps.
That's a good way to put it because I think while we were talking, the formulation came. LMSs are great for onboarding because they're going to get you the fundamentals of what you need. You can have some place to go back to if you're like, I forgot how to do this, or how do I navigate this thing here? But, and I'm thinking about renewables. So once that's in place, then you need those quick things because this is a fast turnaround industry where new
Yeah.
products are coming out, new policies are coming out. You have to, what you did yesterday, you might have to do it similar, but not quite the same. And you need to be able to find that information quickly. Videos are great for that. One thing that I really like, these new tutorial videos where they show somebody drawing the things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are really great. And it also lends itself to our society because of TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We don't have the attention span to sit. I know I don't sit down and just digest things. I just took an OSHA class. That was painful.
Yeah. Did it kind of, it was like going back in time a little bit and how kind of you kind of go through in a linear way,
Oh, it
kind
was
of.
so painful. It was just like I had to tie myself down to the chair with Velcro straps and then just
Yeah. It's,
go
it,
through
I,
it.
yeah, there's a good point around, we are a smartphone, um, multi-tabbed browser,
Yep.
distracted. And I put, I'm placing myself in this, that like deep focus and long periods of uninterrupted work are treasured for me, but hard to line up in a given workday. And so I think of that also for a learner that we ask to, you know, at the end of your workday, find a quiet space, build a schedule, and try and put in 30 minutes, an hour and a half. And that's hard. And,
That is
one of the things
difficult.
that I found in my research is that people, maybe this is obvious, but they start out strong at the beginning of the week, and then their time and engagement in a course by the end of Friday starts to drop off. They're not anywhere on the weekend, which you want to have your weekend for yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's like your best shot is a Monday, and then it kind of tailor it drops off. And the people that we saw that were successful at getting to a high completion percentage somehow were able to build a routine or a schedule and kind of stick to it. And that's, I don't know how, I mean, you can try and teach that or recommend it, but it kind of comes down to the individual and their circumstance if they're able to
Yeah,
do that.
because especially since 2020, this 2020 changed the game fundamentally for everybody. The earth will never be the same again. We had a little fundamental time shift or pivot.
Yeah.
People are working from home. So what I noticed is before 2020, I was live instructing. I was in the field. I was at a customer's place. Consistently. If I said, hey, a webinar was kind of a throwaway thing, it was kind of a
Hmm.
gimme. But now the webinar or webinar-esque thing is kind of the mainstay, or online learning is instructor led is kind of the mainstay. Um, so with that, we also bring in AI generated things, AI generated voices, AI generated content. What impact does that have on engagement and knowledge retention that you can think of?
We were with respect to the AI narration, we've always seen it as a really powerful way to make great use of a subject matter expert's time.
Yeah,
And if we go back, it's changed so much, but if we go back 3 years, it was robotic, and
yeah.
you heard that. And as a learner, it's like it kind of grates on you. We'd see that in surveys and feedback. People are like, I didn't like the robotic voice.
Yeah.
And so we knew that if we did try and use it, it was going to be short. But then, with AI and with companies like 11 Labs, but then Google, I mean, all of them are going to be able to do this.
Google's model has come a long way in a very short time. It's given Chat GPT a run for the money.
Yeah, they are. I think all the folks that were kind of proclaiming Google's demise maybe underestimated the intelligence of and the hard work that is actually in there. And to their credit, they did come back and they launched some things, and their AI, their voices. And I don't know if you've tinkered with or actually used Notebook LM, but that is one that really showcases just a
Oh,
phenomenal.
oh my
Uh,
goodness. I have I'll tell you something. So I was doing some research and I uploaded some documents to Notebook LM. And I didn't even know this feature was a thing. And then I look in the corner and it says, would you like to have a podcast made of this?
yeah.
Of this dry
Hmm.
document, facts. two voices came on and did a 20-minute podcast that was interesting
Yeah.
based on this dry document.
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Just so I think for people like us who create content or think about learning or put forth learning, it's you have to adopt it. If you just
Yeah, and
if
and we have at HeatSpring one of the cool things that we've been able to do with instructors, and we, obviously it's an opt-in, but we present it to them as a time saver and a way to speed up the editing process. But we will ask them to do 5 1-minute recordings just with their iPhone or Android. Just go into your car, get into a nice isolated sound environment, get good quality audio, and that's enough. We ask them to read, and I give them a little SOP on like tone, intonation. Make sure you're not monotone. Get a good sample for like how you want to sound it engaging, and then from there we have their voice and they're able to narrate their
yeah,
own videos. And
yeah,
I have some workflows. So now that's like one of the blockers that we've faced with subject matter experts who are pinched for time is finding time to narrate their slides. And now we can
mm,
say focus on the content, and we can actually help there as well with AI. But like focus on the content, you're the expert in the loop, but don't worry about your voice narrating. We can do that. And it took a little bit, but we're at the point now where it just sounds great. We have no complaints in the surveys. And I mean, we had one course that was 3.5 hours of a
oh
narration like that. And that was, we wouldn't have done that 3 years ago because it was kind of painful to listen to. But
yeah.
now it's kind of, they've got the breaths in there and the pauses and the
I know.
intonation.
I think I experienced this with Runway. I think I was messing around with Runway and made a video, and they said you can use your own voice. It's like, how is that possible? They gave me a little script to read and to record. They gave me the cadence to kind of move through, and it was only like two sentences. And I said, produce a video with my voice, and it came out.
Yeah.
And then here's what I did. I sent the video to my wife. It doesn't show me, it just has the narration in it. She was like, "When did you record this?" I was like, "I didn't."
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. And 11 Labs does that where like they had me speaking fluent Italian.
So
And it was my voice, and I was like, "That's amazing." I
so
don't I
that
don't speak
is
Italian
that is the
fluently.
that is the good thing for an instructor or a course, someone who's giving courses. Now it opens you up to the world
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I'll think of America's two basic languages, English and Spanish. So you either know both or you know one. But if you know one, but you have this great content that you want to get out, that is a great application to transform your output so everybody can understand it. I hadn't
yeah.
thought about that.
We did a couple testing, QA transcriptions with 11 Labs from English to Spanish, and then for a couple of courses that Sean White has on our course, we just we converted them over to Spanish, and again, it was one of those time savers where once we looked at the quality of the translation, we determined that it was accurate, that it saved the time of human translation, which is painstaking and, can add weeks to a transcript to
Yeah.
just go
Oh,
through and do that. And this
yeah.
was done in hours. And it's a premium in terms of the cost table of like when you're using AI. Audio transcription from one language to the other is one of the more expensive things you can
Yeah.
do.
It is. It is.
Up there with like video generation. But in that case, it was a good investment. I don't remember the actual cost, but it was significantly less than a translator and faster. And it's like if it was 95% the quality of the human, we kind of are okay with that 5%,
Yeah.
got
I mean,
something a little wrong.
because that happens with humans anyways. There's ahs, forgetful moments. I just did an. But as we move through this, and people are starting to accept these things. Here's the funny thing that I realize: there are AI narratives that I can tell are AI right off
Mhm.
now because I've been exposed to them enough. Usually it's in the form of a YouTube video that doesn't have a live person talking, it just has a narration and some pictures. You can tell because, for one, the voice models are very similar, or there's like a group of like 12 different voices that you'll hear over and over and over,
Yeah, that's right.
which is good for the fact that if you want to be unique, you use your own voice model for something that you created. Um, the other thing is people are just used to it. There's a generation that that's going to be the norm.
Yeah. I was surprised at how quickly students just became they just accepted it. And I think our signal for that is a lack of feedback. Because if it's something isn't quite right and you
Oh,
paid
no.
for a course, you're gonna be like, this was distracting. I did not like it. And so we dabbled in it and then we ran full courses. And as students go through it, they like you said, they're just used to it.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing these kind of this AI generated content. We're exposed to it in learning, in social context, just browsing YouTube, and yeah, we're gonna get used to it and are. And I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for folks in renewable energy who are have decades of experience locked up in their head. But the idea of creating a course in their mind might be sitting down in front of an empty PowerPoint deck and just building a deck and finding images. And that can be kind of a hard process, tedious, and it's like there's not a super shortcut, but there are ways that we can accelerate transferring their knowledge into a form that students can learn from. And I think
Speaking of
that
which, I've created a course myself, which is located at solarenergyforconsumers.com. This
there
is
you
a
go.
course that is built just for the consumer. There's so many courses that are out there that are made for the installer, the EPC, the manufacturer, but there are very few to none that are for the consumer. So that's solarenergyforconsumers.com. Yeah, I had to throw that plug in there. You just said
No, that's great.
it.
How did you, when did you make this course? Tell me about your process. I'm kind of curious if you used any
So
new tools or,
it was tedious at first because there's not a lot written on it. I had to put myself in an empathetic position of a consumer. And from information that I received over the last 15 years. So I've worked in troubleshooting, answering the phones. Hey, my inverter's not working. And then you get the backstory. The backstory is my salesman told me this. My salesman said that it would do this. My salesman said, optimal word, said, what you say in America, well, only till recently does it have a lot of weight. But before then, it's what you signed and what you wrote. Is
mm,
what you read and what you signed is bond. You know, you remember the term sticks and stones may break my bones, but words and yeah. Well, words hurt now, but that contract is binding. It doesn't matter what I say, matters what's in the contract. A lot of people don't read the contract. A lot of people don't know that they have PPAs. And I've had to explain these when I'm trying to solve a technical problem. And I saw this happening over and over and over again up until the last place that I was a part of. I saw it crazy there.
yeah.
So I said, self, what? And then I answered and said, you need to create a course that's for consumers because I'm not finding that thing there that's explaining. And there's a lot of misinformation about emotional misinformation. People,
Yeah. A
I
little
don't want some of this.
manipulative.
It's going to break the ground. It's going to kill the grass. So to dispel some of this stuff, somebody had to do it, and I figured I'd do it. But tell me, now that we've talked about mine, what is HeatSpring? Just to get the basic definition down.
Oh, HeatSpring is an online platform for renewable energy training. And so we have, I think our total, it changes weekly, but I'd say we have about 350 courses available today. Half of those, or nearly half of those, are free. and they range anywhere from solar to battery energy storage systems to geothermal. We have NFPA 70E courses, 70B O&M courses. Those are some new ones that are popular. We have a strong partnership with NABCEP, so
Yeah.
we have a lot of NABCEP certifications. Our PVA certification is really
That's what
popular
Sean
for,
White, correct?
yeah, that's right, with Sean White. So that's really popular for getting into that level. We've been building out utility and CNI focused content. So yeah, it's a course and it's a video platform primarily, but our instructors can upload other documents to support the learning, PDFs, PowerPoints. We have really cool, one of the cool AI things that we launched this last year that's gotten great feedback from both instructors and students is these knowledge checks that are instantly scored, provide feedback for every answer, and they happen right after you watch a video. So you watch this 10-minute video, maybe technical on a topic. And so right after that video, you have the option, it's not mandatory, to take a three-question quick, like, hey, do you remember this? Do you remember that? And those are automatically created with some API calls with our AI tool that analyzes the video transcript and
Oh,
then comes
really? Yeah.
back with a quiz. And then we built this like little quiz engine that puts it up there. You take a test, it scores it, and it provides feedback on why you got it right or why you got it wrong. Kind of like a flashcard.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good way to do it because one thing that if you take a long, let's say you do an hour lecture and you have to take a test after an hour lecture, as an adult, you got a 50-50 chance of getting most of them right.
yeah, that's a long rearview mirror in terms of like what you can hold in your working memory for an hour, especially doesn't really even matter the concept, but if it's any kind of dense content, technical, a lot of jargon, acronyms, terms, diagrams that have visuals where you got to
Yeah.
understand the flow of something, you got to break that up. And I think that's where we found in that research that like if professor this is a recommendation that we have for instructors, if you got to really try and chunk your video to keep it under 20 minutes so that after they watch that we can quiz on that but not have them go to your point an hour back.
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Yeah, because a 10-minute video can be long because you can
yeah,
pack a lot of things into a 10-minute video. And if you're inquiring about the wrong questions, or if you haven't structured your instructional video to drive home the most important point, people are like, What am I supposed to know? What's important
yeah.
for me to know? What's the objective?" And that's one of the things that stands out to me. Like I just took an OSHA course, and about every 7 videos they did and the videos were like 2 minutes, but they packed a lot of stuff into them.
Hmm.
Then they'd have a little quiz, and at the end you get this long quiz. It's a OSHA 10, so you're going to spend 15 hours in this course.
I mean, yeah, 10 is kind of a ballpark, but you end up spending even more time getting through it.
Yeah, and then you get to the end, you're like, I got to remember stuff from the beginning. Oh my goodness. So just imagine what the OSHA 30 is going to be like. So,
Yeah,
I mean, that's just one thing. And then you get into NFPA 70,
I
E.
think I think in that scenario, some of these courses that are built in e-learning packages, not all of them are like this, but I think their navigation and the user, their learner experience can have a kind of rigid, linear progression.
Yeah.
And they kind of, for either security of the information and protecting the content from copyright or just the validity of the test and the assessment, they don't want you to manipulate the content. They don't want you to copy it. They want you to keep it in the system. And I think to the extent that you can make review and reflection and navigating back and forth across the content easy and like dropping pins into certain things and
That would be,
bookmarks, those kind of things for these big courses, I think, an ideal version of OSHA 10 or OSHA 30 provides some kind of like mechanism for the learner to drop in points and remember where they were and come back to it. Because the idea that 'cause they're going to do it over multiple sessions.
Yes,
And to your point,
that was a
there's
big
going to
one.
be some stale knowledge at the beginning that they got to go back to. And I think sometimes these interfaces, I feel like I'm interacting with content that's inside a Ziploc bag.
Yeah.
And I can't copy it, I can't move it, and it's by design. They don't want you to change it.
They want you to memorize it.
And I was just like, okay, guys, I know why you're doing this, but from a learner perspective, it's harder than it needs to be.
Yeah.
So,
And that's what I always remember high school. And I remember, and I think there was a couple of aha moments, but I can remember one aha moment I had was this tree in my backyard. And I'm like, where's this thing gonna fall? How tall is it? And a friend of mine goes, uh let's just use geometry to figure it out. I was like, what? And it was in the moment, I was like, that's what that's to be used for. But in school, they was just like, this is a right angle, and this
yeah, right. Yeah, it's not
they didn't give
applied.
you a real world example. This is why I'm such a fan of instructor led live training, is because
Yeah,
you remember emotionally what you were dealing with when you were in that moment with an instructor. You don't tie emotion so much with online unless it's
that's true.
somebody who's
Well, and the charisma of the instructor, the anecdotes that they share,
yeah,
the kind of potentially the camaraderie of just being in that room and learning. Like I had said earlier, instructor-led training always scores super high for what people want, and it's great. It just doesn't scale the same way, and
yeah,
and there's always this balance of trying to like find ways to pull that experience into online. It's hard.
unless you're Tony Robbins.
Yeah. Yeah, there's certain people that, they have their own way of making it engaging. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the big things, but we have to adapt. We have to figure out ways to make the information engaging, memorable, accessible through formats like this. You're located in Washington. I'm in Indiana. We're having a discussion. This is the norm.
Yep.
Uh, Screens are the norm until a great EMP meteor passes Earth and shuts us all down. But that's not going to happen anytime soon. So, uh, what are some of the things that you're working on or that you would hope to work on to move us forward?
We have a great platform at HeatSpring that is custom built and gives us the opportunity to experiment with different ways that we think might improve the learning or improve different aspects. And that combined with this uh, AI progression that is it's like a rocket ship on
It is.
rails. So we have a platform that's a good testing platform. And then we see in the news and in the hype cycles a new feature or a new thing. And so we're kind of in this constant tension of wanting to wanting to test out new things, but waiting and like being deliberate and intentional about them. And so the things that we're focusing our efforts on now really are aimed around assessments, knowledge gaps, building an environment where students can learn and then quickly test what they learn and then reveal back to them in that moment. Is this the gap? Do I understand this for the right reason, or do I need to go back and review it? And
Oh,
and those are things that would have been so the level of effort and the manual effort to build assessments for every course in a pre-AI world was not realistic
it was slow.
because it takes so long to write a good assessment question. But that's because of these large language models where they really excel at text in particular.
Yeah.
And if we have a great narration or transcript to an instructional video, which we kind of because of our QA process and the way we have instructors build content, we typically have a pretty tight alignment to like what's on screen and what they're saying. We can end up building these like formative assessments that are informal knowledge checks, flashcards, or we've noticed that for courses that are tied to certifications where there is an actual third-party exam,
Yeah.
students really like to have practice tests that simulate that. And
Yeah.
so if we can build kind of wrap around a course with some assessments, that's where kind of currently today we're working on, future things. Uh, future things we think about are what what kind of habits are changing and what expectations are changing for the learner in terms of a chat interface or
That's what I was about to. That's
a
what I'm.
tutor, kind of little intelligent tutor. And that's where we've had to, it's hard because like if you type in chatbot into like Google or LinkedIn, you're gonna get like 100 companies that are like,
Yeah.
here's our chatbot, and they're all just an AI wrapper for OpenAI, or something. And it's like I don't want to dismiss the engineering work they've done, but I also feel like it's a thousand bowls of oatmeal in terms of what is different from this one. And I'm typing into this little window and I'm chatting and I get something back, and we're not sure yet if students want that as part of their learning experience, but we do know that they probably want to dive into something when they need to dive into something, create a summary or ask a question or interrogate a concept. And that's where some kind of tutor that is trained on a course or trained on a certain domain could be really relevant.
Yeah.
And we know that there's a lot of options out there. We're we're trying to find the right fit and the way to, what that would look like.
What about the legal and ethical implications of AI and training? Because I'll give you, for instance, I think it's Suno. Suno is a music provider. I can go to Suno. I write music. I'm a musician. I can go there and say, "Hey, I want you to give me um, a Count Basie style orchestra based on this particular song by Count Basie with Mariah Carey's vocals singing from the Butterfly album, and it'll mash these up. Now, you know it's going to infringe upon some things. Um, does that come into play when it comes to training or ethical considerations?
We do think about this, and then we think about copyright seriously. And that actually determines what tools we'll even use.
Oh,
And for example, when we were like one of the tools that we use in pre the outlining phase, and like if we're working upstage with an instructor that's got an idea for a course, we're outlining the course, for setting
yeah.
objectives. Typically, that instructor, because of their experience, has PowerPoints or lectures or webinars, or they work at a company and they've got internal documentation, they've got a body of knowledge, all of that. And it has it's all their copyright or their companies, or it could be knowledge that they use, but they don't want leaked out. And so we had to go and look at these different frontier models and say which one, and look and analyze their privacy statements and look what they say about training data. And then we went with Anthropic's
Mm.
Claude model because we actually had a back and forth with their legal department because we were like, we have instructors that own their copyright, they've written books,
Yeah.
and we like if we ask an instructor to upload chapters 1 through 7 of a book that they spent 4 years writing, does that leak out into chats? Are you using that for your training data? And so they said very clearly online and then in our exchange with their kind of legal folks that they said that's all private. That doesn't leak into it. We don't use it for training. How we train our models isn't how like what you share doesn't go into our models. And so that's one area
Wait a minute,
where
that
we
was
feel like
Claude or was that Chat GPT?
Claude. We don't use ChatGPT for anything.
Yeah, because I was about to say Chat GPT actually learns from the user.
Yeah, we don't use them. And we know that their models are really good. They have the mind share of the society. They are the kind of like they've kind of crossed into they become kind of like Kleenex or rollerblade in terms of a generic term. In the sense that like I'll give so I've done like these applied workshops where I teach people from the Department of Energy or like Seattle climate tech startups on models and how to use them.
Yeah.
And what's really common after I get into the Q&A, because I we're a Claude shop, like we use Claude for everything.
Yeah.
And folks in the room are like, "Oh, I only use ChatGPT." And I'm like, "Wow, that's amazing." And I think that's changing with Google because their models are really good.
Yeah.
But it is
Gemini is different.
remarkable how much like the casual use falls into OpenAI. And in my mind, I'm like, you guys are training everything you give it, they're listening to and
Yeah.
using. And for the most part, maybe that's not a big deal. But for us in our world of training and where we want to be specific with the ethics of how that data is used, that's one way. To your point around like mashing up content, you know, we we are aware of that when we're creating images, I think is something that's interesting. Like, I created a healthy home evaluator course for BPI's healthy home evaluation. And a lot of it is like training someone to go into a house that might have, mold or asbestos. And, these were all like very specific images. And we had access to some images that were available to use because they were from the DOE
Yeah.
and we could use those. The copyright was clear. But then we had gaps in certain ones where we needed something. And so, we were like, what can we do to find an image online that is that picture, but then use that to create a version of it that is unique enough that the person that took that picture wouldn't say that's my photo. And
Right.
that's the gray area we're in, which is kind of photorealistic images that are influenced by something online. And that is going to get so gray and so mashed up that I think the copy, I mean, like Getty Images and these other like large repositories that sell stock photography, I think that's a really tough spot for them to be in to
Oh,
enforce
yeah.
that.
Yeah, this is disrupting so many industries.
Yeah.
It has a potential to disrupt the learning or knowledge share system if we don't embrace it correctly, if we don't meet it where it is.
Yeah.
But like you said, photographers, in a couple of months, I will be able to describe a picture and you will not be able to tell me that it is not taken by a photographer.
Yeah, and there's interesting things like, I was wondering about the use case for a company that like uh, what's that? Low rank average LoRa's. Have you heard of LoRa's? I guess they're a certain way of training image models. And the idea is that like there's this image model that can create, it's really good at creating images, but it's generic. And so you
Yeah.
give it a specific skill. And the first way LoRa showed up is like, I'm gonna upload 25 images of Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to ask you to put Leonardo DiCaprio in this context or that context. And it was really good at humans because it's trained on humans and it's really good at faces. And I was thinking like, all right, well, in a in a scenario where you're working with equipment and it's like switchgear, you
Oh,
know, and it's like could a company take all of the photos that they have in their warehouse of a certain kind of equipment, train Alora on this switchgear, and then marketing department can just say, "Give me that one out in the desert. Now put it in this environment. Now and it's got to be really accurate if you're going to use it for training."
yeah.
But it's like that's where I think we're going to get to a point where the pixels are just very malleable. And if you're out there with your smartphone on site in the field, take a couple photos, and that can be enough to train in other iterations that are close enough that it's a good reference document for someone that needs to know where on that panel to look to find the thing to open up.
You,
And
you
I don't
know,
know.
you're right because I've seen the progression on specifically Chat GPT and Dolly E. A couple of months ago, I tried to make an inverter. I just wanted a generic picture of an inverter with the word inverter on it.
Oh
And
yeah.
it made a picture of what looks like a PV inverter, but the word looked like it was,
Fever dream. Yeah, it's
yeah,
like yeah.
yeah. I was like, well, but recently I know, I think my wife did something. And I was like, where'd you get that? She was like, Chat GPT. I was like, but look at the words. She was like, I know, right? I was like, it's
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah, they can handle text now. And ChatGPT, that was one of the I had some FOMO when ChatGPT launches something because it is good, and their image generation was really good, and the text and the ability to match styles was really good. And Google with their Imagen or Imagine 3, actually maybe it's Imagine 4. They just had their I/O conference last week.
Yeah,
They just launched something that could do text. And so I think you're going to see a parity where like they can all do this. And
yeah,
to your point, they can handle text labeling. And in our domain of like technical product specific training, labels that are wrong lose trust with the learner immediately.
yeah,
And specifically, like
yes,
we can't use like a solar field. If it looks weird or if the arrays aren't balanced or something's wrong, it's like that image is no longer helpful. It's distracting.
yeah,
And that's where, we lean on real photos for those kind of things, but I think it's getting better. And
yeah. Because I think I did one of when I started my course, I didn't have a lot of specific pictures that I wanted. So I tried to generate them just for example. And it would draw a solar module, but the cell lines would be weird. And I said, make me an array, make me a ground mount array in the field. And I gave it as many descriptors as possible. And it just came out like it was a psilocybin picture.
yeah, no, yeah, exactly. It's like, and those are fine for thumbnails on videos or social media for like, and I think you see a lot of those, but like in instruction or in that where the fidelity really needs to be a higher bar, you get into these loops where it's like it's not getting better. I'm just getting like versions of some things I can't use. But I think one thing we found with image generation that really helped me is with uh, I use Claude
Hmm.
to create a, a really detailed image prompt, better than I could create. So it's like I give it kind of
Oh,
a rough description, and then I give it specific system prompt instructions that says you are an expert image prompt creator. You are going to dissect what I gave you and make a structured prompt and give it all of the details it needs. And then I take that output and give it to Imagine 4 or some other image generation. And the results were striking in terms
wow.
of the quality of images and what I could use. And that has been really helpful. I just shared one yesterday with our team called Whisk. It's interesting from Google where it's like you give a reference image and then a style reference and it just combines it and it
Wow.
outputs something. And it's good for that kind of stylized look. It's not, I don't think it would work for what you were describing, like an inverter, but this is kind of part of my work as tinkering and figuring out what we can apply in our courses to help improve learning.
Hey, are you guys going to be at any shows or anything like that in the near future?
I'll be attending Mayfield Renewables conference, education conference in Seattle in October. And I don't know, I'm trying to figure out I don't know if I'm presenting anything specifically for HeatSpring or if I'm there like on behalf of HeatSpring, but as a participant. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like, I don't know if I'm delivering anything, but
yeah.
that's the next thing that HeatSpring is going to be at. And then we're preparing for next year's NABCEP. But that's
Yeah.
kind of that's I think it's Milwaukee and your neck of the woods,
Yeah, my
and
neck of the woods. I can drive there.
yeah, that's great.
Um,
Um,
so are there any webinars that newsletters, anything that HeatSpring provides to let people know what new content's coming out, what you guys are working on?
our best place, and this is kind of Britt's wheelhouse, is she uses LinkedIn to post regular updates on, and those are articles that are written for HeatSpring magazine, and those are snippets of new courses to kind of highlight new courses. And our best place is like LinkedIn, where Britt is kind of posting either links to our YouTube channel, links to a new course, an article that either Brian or Britt or one of our
And
instructors wrote.
that's Brittany Heller, in case
Yeah,
anyone wants to know.
yeah, Brittany Heller. She is our kind of expert in solar and renewable energy, but also is really good at thinking how to like structure our communication across different social media platforms. Mostly LinkedIn for us that works really well. That's what my recommendation is, to kind of just kind of follow HeatSpring on LinkedIn for all of our latest newsletters or HeatSpring magazine articles.
Okay. And well, this has been great because I know I can see that you and I could talk for days about this. Um, but I want to thank you so much for being on the What's Up Solar podcast and letting us know that someone's thinking about the way you get information at HeatSpring.
Yeah, this has been great. And like I said, I don't know if I said this, but like to kind of be on the same wavelength as someone that cares about education and training, it's fun to kind of like I think we went straight into just talking about the tools that we use, which is typical, but it's great because that kind of like thoughtful analysis of these tools beyond the hype is where you can really apply them to help improve students' learning beyond finding like an easier, faster, one click make something button. Because I think AI is going to create a sea of words and content, and the that's noise. And the signal, I think, are the folks who have expertise to kind of lift out what's relevant for other folks. So you're
Yeah,
doing that with your work. We're trying to do that at HeatSpring to make sure that we're making good use of people's time. Like we're using these tools, but we're not doing it to take any shortcuts, if that makes
that's it.
sense.
That's exactly what's going on because it really speeds up the delivery time if you get your process down and you understand your quality. It takes it from a couple of months to a couple of weeks and sometimes a couple of days if you're really efficient about it. But you need that person to review this stuff to see that it has some validity and accuracy before it's put into a presentable content form. So cool. And thank you for being on the show. And don't be a stranger because I know there's more that we can talk about. And let's schedule something in the next couple of months.
Yeah, let's check back in and see where we're at. This has
Uh,
been a great chat.
All right. So you remember, everybody, uh, stay tuned because information is power. That information and knowledge is always the most powerful thing that you can have combined with your spirit and your soul. So when you combine those, you have an energy force that's almost as great as the sun. You know why the sun is greater? Because the sun never sends a bill. So next time, love you all. Peace.